everyone, this is the Real Talk Podcast. I'm Shane Girdlestone from Rock Solid Coaching, my co-host George Wilson from Flex Success. We're here to talk about real shit, taboo shit, the shit that you might not want to ask those questions of people or something you just don't really know about. And we're here to educate you guys with factual, evidence-based information. We have a great guest on the show today, Scott Goble. Welcome. Thank you for coming on, mates.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Guys, just going to have a chat about Scott, about like where he's come from, what he's done, how he does it, his coaching approach, his physiology. Physiology. So this is comp prep, man. I have to cut this out later again.
Psychology, the physiology.
Yeah, physiology. We'll go with that anyway.
Sounds good.
So, all right, Scott. So look, let's for people who listen who don't know who you are, mate, who are you?
Who am I? That's a fine philosophical question to get started on, Shane. But I am just a bodybuilding tragic, I guess you could say. Like, I fell in love with bodybuilding when I was 14 years old, and it drove my entire education path. You know, I went down the exercise physiology route at university and studied that with the sole intention of becoming a better bodybuilder. I didn't really expect it to turn into any sort of profession. But because I did have a love of bodybuilding, I ended up working in gyms and working in supplement stores and all that sort of stuff. And had a somewhat successful amateur bodybuilding career. Obviously, I wasn't successful enough to turn pro, but ticked off a few good titles and had a lot of fun along the way. And I did that over an 11-year period. And then, luckily for me, becoming a comp prep coach actually became a profession because when I started, there was no such thing as a comp prep coach because I started in 2004, and you just went to the biggest, sort of juiciest looking guy in the gym and said, "What do you think about this?" And he would say, "Take this or do that," and you'd be like, "All right then." And you sort of just had to figure it out for yourself. So it was a sort of trial by fire, I guess. Like you literally did everything wrong and then eventually discovered what worked for you. And looking back, it is one of those things where I go, if only I knew back then what I know now, I would have been so much better. But yeah, that's pretty much it, mate. So it came from that educational background, was very much into the scientific aspect of things. And then as I became a full-time coach, which really only happened after my competitive career finished, I started to dig a lot deeper into the behavioral and psychology and everything, which to me is every bit as fascinating now as the physiology, even though that's sort of how I was brought into it.
Nice. So do you coach Gen Pop at all? Or are you solely just contest prep?
Yeah, I would say 95% of my client base are competitors or aspiring competitors. So very little Gen Pop, and even the Gen Pop I attract are relatively serious individuals that have come to me and know of me through the bodybuilding avenues. So not much Gen Pop in my world, and I like it that way. Like I've had advice from other coaches that I should do Gen Pop. Like it's easier, there's more money, there's more of them, but it's just not my jam. Like I like working with highly motivated individuals, and I like figuring them out and seeing how they respond under pressure and under duress, and seeing how I can sort of guide them through that. So bodybuilding is my thing, and that's the niche that I want to sort of exist in.
Yeah. Well, I suppose talking about your niche, like George and I talked about before, you are known as the bikini comp prep coach of Australia. I'm not sure if you like that title or not, but it's what you've been branded with, mate.
Yeah. Look, I'm happy with the title. Like I've had a lot of success with my bikini competitors, and I don't exactly know what I attribute that to. Like I have had success in other divisions as well. I even turned an open bodybuilder pro, but he didn't really seem to generate the coaching inquiries that the bikini girls did. So when the bikini girls took off, I feel like there's just a real interaction between them. There's a huge network. And they all talk, and if you have success with one bikini girl, they all communicate with each other, and more just appear out of nowhere. And I've been very lucky. Like the reality is, a coach is as good as his athletes, and I have attracted some outstanding athletes, and they have made me look very, very good. And as a consequence, I've attracted more good athletes, and the ball just keeps on rolling. So I'm going to put up some other really high quality bikini girls this comp season, and I'm sure more will follow on after that.
We actually have Alicia coming on the show in a few weeks as well. She talks very highly of you, and I thought let's get on the show and have a chat. So
Alicia's
look,
fantastic. I love
oh,
Alicia. Yeah.
mate, she's always like in my Instagram. She'll be liking things straight away. She is renowned for if I make one spelling mistake, she's in my inbox within seconds. Just hey, check it out. Right, thanks, Alicia. Hey, so your coaching physiology, your coaching approach for your bikini girls. I suppose first off, how do you sort of um, judge them at the start and critique them to say like this is where we're going to start, this is how we're going to go, and what's your approach to taking them through a contest prep?
Oh man, it's obviously a very much a case by case thing. Like it's I would always like to work with clients in the lead up to contest prep, as I'm sure George will attest, and you will attest that you can largely determine someone's success by their starting point. If I'm starting someone with the appropriate level of development in reasonable condition, with a fantastic metabolism and low output, low stress, everything else, we're set up for a really good prep. So I would always like to work with someone in the lead up to their prep so I can position them correctly. If they're coming to me with a lot of body fat to lose in a short period of time and they're already on relatively low calories and things like that, I will explain to them that we are already in trouble. And as a consequence, these are the repercussions of us starting this prep. Your calories are going to be incredibly low. Your output's going to be incredibly high. There's going to be massive hormonal disruption. There's going to be a dramatic escalation of hunger, and the post-show period is going to be miserable for you. Like, we can potentially get you in shape, but in my opinion, it won't be worth the repercussions post-show. And I will try and convince them to, reset and reposition and look at a show further down the track. But in some instances, they will say, no, I want to do this show because of, I've got this wedding, holiday, whatever it is planned afterwards, and I can't do the show. I won't be able to compete in, for another 12 months, 18 months, whatever it may be. In that case, I will say to them, okay, well, this is the way we're going to have to do things. And we're doing it in a suboptimal manner out of necessity because it's the only way to get you in shape. And this is what's going to happen as a result. And this is what we're going to have to do post-show in order to bring you back to life and rah, rah, rah. And they always say, yeah, I'll be fine post-show. And then post-show comes and it's an absolute mess. But yeah, so I guess I just sort of explain to them. I really feel that the key to good coaching is getting good buy-in by your client, like getting them to understand the process and buy into the process, believe in the process, because they'll probably have other people in their ear telling them things and stuff like that. But if what you're saying makes a whole lot more sense to them, they're far more likely to follow your instructions than anyone else's. So I just try and explain to them, this is what we are trying to achieve. This is the amount of fat we've got to get off. We have to create this deficit. We can create the deficit through different means. We can have a little bit more food and increase your output, but then we got to look at the fatigue markers and we're going to have to address that. Or we can just go hungry and, you just explain the process. Like, it is normal for you to be hungry. Hungry is not necessarily a state of distress. It's what happens when you've been in an extended deficit for a long period of time and your body fat levels drop really low. That's my overall philosophy, is explain the process in as much detail and as simple and understandable terminology as possible to create client buy-in. I think that's where my success come from, is actually getting people to commit to the process and understand the process.
I think George and I have talked about this before about like managing those expectations when they're coming on board, that you might have someone come to you in June and say, hey, let's compete in October. And you're like, yeah, well, I think we need to look at this, and this is what's going to happen in the meantime. We can push it, but do you think maybe we should look and extend that onto another period, another show, and do a season potentially next year? Because I think there's nothing better than having someone on before that to be able to get those metrics on beforehand on the off season and see how they measure and see how they track and see how they manage the fatigue already from there.
Man, 100% agree. Like, it's everything. Like that starting point is the most important thing. And if you're already behind the eight ball when you get started on prep, it's going to be a bad time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd like to know, how do you stay up to date with the current trends? Because we know we've been through so many different trends over our time where, carbs have been bad, fats are bad, keto, there's all the different stuff. How do you stay up to date and relevant, so to speak?
That's a good question, man. Look, I don't proclaim to be an expert in anything. Like, I claim to be well-versed in everything and an expert in nothing. So I just try my best to listen to people that are way smarter than me. Like, if you want to talk the training space, there's people way smarter than me in the training space. So I'll listen to a Brad Schoenfield or, anyway, I went to a Jordan Shallow seminar not long ago, and I will learn something. If you want to talk the nutrition space, I'll listen to Nutrition Gurus. You talk the gear space, I'll listen to the Victor Blacks and Joe Jeffries and everyone else. I'll listen to John Jewett. I just listen to people that are smarter than me, and I steal their stuff and I sell it as my own.
I think we all do.
No, look, I am not in the labs. I am not conducting the research. So I am not coming up with that many original ideas. But I think the more you listen and the more experience you accrue, the more diverse your approach can be, and the more you can tailor your approach to the individual and use suboptimal approaches, because sometimes conditions aren't optimal and sometimes you can't do it a particular way. So you better find the next best way, or the way that client can actually execute it if they can't perform the optimal version that you want them to.
Yeah, we have this discussion about optimal a lot, and I think that optimal is very person dependent. We can say what's optimal just to achieve maximal results, but some individuals just don't have the setup, the routine in their life to even achieve close to what's counted as, again, inverted commas, optimal. But it's still optimal for them in that environment. It's whatever they can do to their fullest potential. That's what's optimal for this individual. People put such a big focus on trying to get these individuals that can't fit into the 100% bodybuilder lifestyle and trying to create these individuals, which is usually where these things go wrong. They start to clash. They run into issues along the prep instead of just working with the tools they have at hand and trying to overcomplicate this process.
Man, I 100% agree. Like, if we had just optimal clients with the optimal lifestyle, we could use the optimal approach. They are very few and far between. Let's be honest.
100%, man.
All right, let's talk PEDs. All right, the risk versus reward strategy I like to take. How do you approach? Like, there's so many. I've found so many clients come on board now, and a lot of the first questions I get asked is about, what about steroids? What about this? What about that?
What can I take? When can I take it? How much?
How much can I do? And the big one I love to hear is, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll take whatever you tell me to. All right. I just want to get massive. What's your approach there, whether it be male or female, on protocols for that and safe use? Commas for those who aren't watching.
Yeah, look, I mean, whenever I get those questions, and I'm just thinking of a client very recently that has approached it in the exact same manner you described then. And my approach is always, we'll lay the foundations first. Let's lay the foundations of training and nutrition. Like, if you start with me, you're not getting a drug protocol in the first month. There's just zero chance of it. Like, I want to see if you can train. I want to know that I can control your energy balance. If I can't control your energy balance, we've got no right to go down the path of PED use. Like, we've got to get the basics in place first. So once we've established the foundations, they can train, they can control their food intake, we can monitor energy balance. Then we're going to do some blood work just to make sure that they're healthy, because dead clients are pretty bad for business, let's be honest. So we'll establish some decent health markers. We might, if they're male clients, we might look at, their testosterone to estrogen ratios and get some sort of idea of aromatization rates and things like that. It's all kind of like semi-educated guesswork, let's be honest. And we can then implement the approach that the Broderick Chavez is using, take a little derivative, a testosterone derivative and a DHT derivative and maybe a 19-NOR or something, depending on their level of experience and expertise and previous usage, and just sort of build the stack from there. And I like to sort of escalate dosages slowly if they're sort of in the off season. With females, it's very different. Like, I will take the Victor Black route. Like, normally I will always have a conversation with my female clients and I'll say, look, there's many ways we can do this. And the way I would rather we did it is explore the non-androgenic compounds in order to maximize hypertrophy first. But the reality is, in Australia in particular, like the better combination would be growth hormone and insulin. And I would love to use that more often with female clients, even though it sounds incredibly serious and scary and everything else to a first timer. There's zero risk of androgenic side effects. So I would love to go down that path and exploit that and try and get muscle growth out of that even before I looked at doing androgens. But the reality is the expense, the stigma around injecting, and the vast majority of girls end up just taking 5 milligrams of Anavar or 10 milligrams of Anavar because they can't afford it, they can't access it, they don't want to inject, and that's okay. Like, who am I to say no to that? Like, I was juiced up to the eyeballs back in my competitive day. So it's a different approach for men and for women. I guess over the years, my usage or my recommended usage has decreased, in particular with females. But, there are girls that can get away with murder, to be completely honest with you. Like, I have girls coming to me that are like, I've used 10 milligrams of Anavar and 10 milligrams of stanozol for the last 6 months. And you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's quite nice to hear. It's quite nice to hear you touch on the Australian female ped scene, because one of the things I noticed when I moved over to Flex with Dean, the minute I started having consults with these females and their past drug use, it was a big alarm bell for me that there was a lot of old school bro science practice still going on across Oz. And I was trying to figure out what the root cause was, because there's people like yourself, Scott, that are promoting good, safer use, again, for use of a better word. And then most of these people coming to me like, oh yeah, I've been on Anavar 20 mgs for a year, and like absolutely disastrous cases like this. And I'm looking at them thinking, well, I can't visually see any virilization in like masculizing effects from the surface. Some of these girls must, again, like you said, getting away with absolute bloody murder. It's really, really incredible. But again, the access to these drugs and the cost is such a big problem in both the male and female space that I find, because like you said, rightly so, non-androgenic compounds that females can use quite safely, then they see massive results from, are just so hard to come by. It's really one of the biggest problems we see in Oz at the moment. It's compound selection of being able to get these things in.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've got a couple girls that are using testosterone replacement therapy now as well, because their testosterone is always really, really low, and it's being administered somewhere between 2 milligrams and 6 milligrams per week in my 2 clients that use it. And to get them to use that, like, I mean, I don't cajole or like force anyone to take any drugs, but like to explain to them that this is safe and we are working towards the upper limits and we are going to slowly titrate the dosage up and monitor your blood work and get you to here, because your levels are chronically suppressed and have been for the last 2 years. It's a very intimidating thing for girls to work through. So I would really love it if the female PED use was more openly discussed, because there is still a great stigma around it. And I still feel like it's the same way in Australia, that it's much more frowned upon for a female to take a PED than it is a male. Like, it's almost a rite of passage for Aussie guys in Australia. Like, I go to a party with my missus and all her friends, and their partners will come up to me and be like, yeah, so I did a cycle, and you're just like, dude, you don't even track. Like, like, what are you doing this for? It's just right in the male community. But in the female community, there's still very much a stigma about it, and I wish the education and discussion was far more open.
It starts with this misunderstanding that we have male and female sex hormones, like, as if they're two indifferent of each other. Like, men only have test and females only have estrogen, when in reality they're just human hormones that both deal within the right amount. That is the consequential difference here. It's the right amount being the problem. And trying to explain to a female again, hey, we want to put you on testosterone replacement here to maximize your natural potential here. Like, that's the only time you're really maximizing that natural limit, because we're keeping you on the top end of natural range, but you are using testosterone to achieve that. You say that to them and instantly barriers go up. The minute you say the word testosterone, it's this constant like rebuttal from the client, and they look at you like you're the devil. It's something I've been trying to work on quite heavily, on trying to educate people on HRT correctly. I don't know what your opinion with this. It's actually quite cool to get your opinion on this, Scott. I've been toying with kind of finding like the middle ground. So we know that natural competing in females is not necessarily healthy year after year. Constantly trying to manage those hormonal metabolite regulation, menstrual cycle regulation. And again, females competing every single year. They're always in that girl group of next show. Enhanced competing is also got its risks. That I find that there may be a little bit of ground here where the extended competitor who doesn't want to go super physiological could just stay at HRT the entire way through their career to negate both the potential negatives from natural competing and also super physiological. It'd be cool to hear. It sounds like you're starting to lean in toward that a little bit more with a couple of your females.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I feel like that would be the best case scenario, because you're mitigating the risks of both. So that would be fantastic. But if you've got a girl that is philosophically natural and you want to administer testosterone, that is the hardest sell in the game, I would feel. Like, I feel like the girls that I had take a TRT dose of testosterone have already gone down the PED path, and they're less intimidated by it, and they probably used an injectable something, even if it's injectable L-carnitine, which I like to use as a gateway drug to other injectables. But it's just eliminating that stigma of a needle. Like the vast majority of people which are uneducated still think the needle is more dangerous than the oral, which is kind of mind-blowing when you've been in the space for a while, but it's still the reality of the newbies to the sport.
I think it also comes from allied health professionals too. If you're a female and you want to go there, hey, I want to go on the pill. Okay, here's 200 different brands. You can do that. At the end of the day, that's a sexual hormone modulator. It's exactly the same what testosterone is doing. We're actually using testosterone to help modulate estrogen. It's doing the exact same thing, but yet if they go there for that sort of HRT, it's frowned upon. And like I said, it's taboo. It's like, oh shit, and everyone, put those barriers up. So I think
I had a prime example of that exact situation this week that I'm trying to debate with, because the client wanted to go through the correct procedures through clinical practice to get her replacement. And the first thing the doctor said to her was, you don't need this. We'll try you on estrogen and progesterone straight away. It's like, well, I don't really want you fully suppressed here straight from the off. That's not the goal of what we're trying to achieve here. We want to see if you're a partial suppression or a full suppression of your hypogonadal and then go from there. Do we need estrogen and progesterone mediated input as well? She's straight away jumping you to almost a full suppression. The medical space and these people that the public generally trust have got like a big array of like misinformation, or perhaps they've not caught up to date with the current literature that we've got. So us as coaches are kind of fighting a losing battle, because the client's always going to look at their GP or their practitioner to be above us in knowledge. But what I've seen from coming over to Oz, and the difference between UK to Oz and perhaps even like America to Oz, is like a 5 to 10 year almost like relapse back in medical practice, and still some of the things that I see that practitioners are giving to clients now. And so it's a big barrier that we've got to try and get across.
I think so, definitely. It takes education. So we haven't got much time left here. Scott, I would like you to share one of your success stories, whether it be a personal success story, a client success story, a business success story, something that some of the people don't know about.
Oh, people don't know about. Oh, yeah. That's oh man, I'm not too sure. Like I mean, I can pull a success story out of any one of those categories, but one that people don't know about is a tricky one, because most people would know the people I've turned pro. So that's not any secret there. Myself, well, I guess, in my career, I literally did almost everything wrong. Like, back when I was competing, there was no mitigating fatigue or anything like that. You just kept on running through the wall.
Actually, I'm going to ask you a story. I heard along the grapevine that at one stage there, you were doing intravenous Lasix.
Oh, okay. This was my first show.
Oh, so that's true.
My first ever show. So I was that guy. I'll do anything. I'll do anything.
Yeah, just tell me.
I'm getting ready for the novice NAVA Southern Hemisphere. I will do anything. So I took the death combination. Like, I took aldactone, high dose aldactone all week with ridiculous amounts of fluid, and then intravenous Lasix the morning of the show. Like, if you want to kill yourself, like, that's the best way to do it. Luckily, for my sake, I combined it with a shitload. So I was just pounding burgers and pizza and everything else, which was the only thing that kept me alive, probably. So it was an instance of two wrongs make a right, I guess. Like,
that's a great story.
Had a terrible carb load, which balanced out the incredible electrolyte imbalance that would have probably stopped my heart had I loaded on actual rice and fish. So first ever show. So again, bad advice, like,
yep.
You talk to the biggest guy at the gym and he says, this will make you dry. Oh, I think the instruction was, take this on the morning of the show if you're not dry enough. I've never competed before. I don't even know what dry is. So I'm like, what's I could be drier?
That's every first time competitor's like, I'm not dry enough, I'm not lean enough. That's everyone. I want to be loaded up too.
Yeah. So first ever show.
All right. So where do you see your business in 5 years?
It's a good question. Look, my business has changed a lot recently in the last year. Like, I've got new software. I'm trying to outsource as much as possible. I've got a virtual assistant. I've got a girl doing the social media. I've got 2 coaches working underneath me. And I would like to expand their roles and probably have less autonomous coaching clients. At the moment, I've got the majority of clients on my coaching base, and my 2 other coaches are helping out with other clients. But I would like them to almost coach not completely autonomously. I guess I'm a control freak, and the way the software is set up that I utilize, anything that any interaction they have with the client, any changes they want to make, any recommendations they want to pass on, it comes to me so I can review it and then I can pass it all on. So ultimately, nothing goes through to the clients that I don't oversee. But I guess I would like to have less clients that are wholly and solely reliant on me, potentially expand the coaches underneath me so that I've got ones with different skill sets and different specialities. And then I can direct them or the clients to the coach that's best suited to them, and I can oversee everything. And that way I can maybe take on a little bit more of a mentoring and educational role with the clients that I work with, and even beyond that. So that's probably where I would like to take it. I still love it. Like, I'm honestly, like, my greatest fear is I'm going to age out of this profession. Like I already feel it happening.
Yeah.
I'm 47. I'm working with some really young people, and I'm just like, oh, we are so different. Like the generational gap is large. So I'm hoping that never happens, because I don't know, these young people keep me young, I guess, in a way. And I really do enjoy the interactions, but they're looking at life for a very different perspective than me. So it's a challenge at times. So
it's quite cool to see the natural progression I find with people that are meant to be coaches. You see this natural progression of where they go within their business. They go from being the coach to being the guy overseeing coaches to then moving to more of an educational role at the end of kind of their careers. It's quite nice. I only see that in a few kind of coaches that are meant to really achieve that. And again, it's nice to hear you talking already about that right direction, how you're going to keep your input within this sport, perhaps moving away from it again, like that generational gap, giving that to the coaches that work underneath you, still like having some input, oversee and make sure they are doing good, correct work, but being able to then step up into that next role of the next figure of authority, and then being able to just educate consistently. And I think that's always kind of the natural progression in most good coaches, or where they should really be aiming to go.
Yeah, well, look, I appreciate that, George, and I hope that is the case, and I try my best to be a good coach. No one's a perfect coach, but I think a little bit of humility and understanding where your weaknesses lie is helpful in making you better. And there's still skills I need to, work on. Like I say, you'll never be an expert in everything. You can't be. You just literally can't be. Like, there's just too much to know. So I try and get as much knowledge as I can. And I guess that is one aspect of my business that I need to refine it from a time management perspective. I need to spend more time on my own education to become a better coach as well.
All right, so there you have it. He's looking to have a bit more autonomy in his business, a few more people under him become an educator. And as we were saying before, like it's that path of coaches that they go from being that coach face to face or even online coaching into the education realm, which is great to see. So, Scott, I know your books are probably chockers, but if anyone wants to send you an inquiry, where do they hit you up at?
Go through the Team Goble Instagram page. That's the best way. You can fill out a little online application form. At the moment, I'm not taking any clients on until after season A. I've got a pretty full card up until then. But yeah, no doubt I'll have some opportunities after that to take some people on. So yeah, hit me up there. I love working with everyone. It is a job I love, and I think that is what makes it so easy for me. Or not necessarily easy, but
but love it.
It's a joy. Like I genuinely love my job. I cannot believe it has become a profession. Like it turned out my education was not a complete waste of time, like my parents thought it would be, and I've ended up generating some semblance of a reasonable income out of doing something I love. So I'm very, very grateful.
Mate, it's great to hear. I love hearing that. All right, guys, this has been the Real Talk Podcast with Scott Goble, physique coach of Australia. Mate, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it. Guys, if you have any questions, queries, or any questions you want us to ask, hit us up in our DMs at Rock Solid Coaching or Flex Coach George. No, Flex, what is it again?
You don't know my Instagram.
Oh, mate, I've got prep brain, mate. I can barely remember. Still got 3,000 steps to do.
I'm only giving you shit because I can't remember it. Right, it's @FlexCoach_George.
There you go. There you have it, guys. Hit us up in the DM there. Guys, please like, subscribe, and share. It's the only way to get this out and about into as many people as possible and try and get this information out there. Again, Scott, thanks for being on the show, mate. We do appreciate it. And we wish you all the best for the future, buddy.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have this back. There will be around some Scott Goble in the future.
There'll be more.